part. So good evening, everyone. Happy to see so many people here, and even though it's Valentine's Day, I've been told, so great that you're here, and welcome to our Blockchain Monday from the Hanseatic Blockchain Institute. As most of you know, we are a German Verein, so we are a group of blockchain enthusiasts in Hamburg and surrounding, and we've been organizing these Blockchain Mondays for quite a while. I don't even remember because of the COVID. I'm not sure how many years, but I think 2 or 3 years ago we started, and we had a talk almost every Monday since then. So we're really proud of that. And other activities were a bit limited in the last years, the last 2 years because of COVID, but we'll have physical events soon again, because these events used to be weekly physical, and we had a beer afterwards, and I think we all miss it. So hopefully we can start with that again in summer latest. Yeah, my colleague Jan just posted a link how you can become a member of the Blockchain Institute. Yeah, you should become a member, of course. It doesn't cost a lot, and it supports our group and the blockchain idea, and we want to promote it also to people not from the blockchain sphere. And yeah, we had a lot of discussions and talks with companies in Hamburg, and yeah, I think still everybody is really interested in blockchain technology, but there's also a lot of misunderstanding, obviously. And yeah, I think everybody who is in the blockchain sphere knows that most of the time you have to do a lot of explanations. So that's also a goal, what we try to achieve with the Blockchain Monday. And normally my colleague Moritz Schild is sitting here, but he was not available tonight, so I'm trying to replace him. Yeah, I think that's all for the Blockchain Institute. Just visit our website, blockchaininstitute.eu, and you will find everything. It's German only, I think, at the moment. Sorry for that. Yeah, and tonight we have Tim and we have Marcus. I'm really happy about the topic they've brought. They want to talk about Web3. And as most of you probably followed in the last month, there has been a lot of discussion and controversies around blockchain in general, Web3, decentralization. Does this all make sense? And I think it's really interesting to see so many high-profile CEOs and other groups joining the discussion, which is a good sign. But also there's really a lot of fight and a lot of a surprising amount of controversy, basically. And I think it's really interesting, and you've probably also followed it. And I'm happy that Tim and Marcus will talk about Web3 and also about their ideas tonight. I think best is if you introduce yourself, because you've done so many different things. I'll probably get it wrong. So I'll hand over to Tim, I guess.
Marcus, would you like to start?
Go to Marcus.
Sure, I'd be happy to start. I'm sorry I don't have slides, but I can introduce myself. Also, thanks for the invitation. I'm Marcus Zappello, founder of Tech. We're a company that's pioneering, I would say, technologies in decentralized identity. We're in Vienna, Austria, and myself, I've worked on. I don't really have a strong cryptocurrency or smart contract background, anything like that. I've always worked on concept of decentralized identity, and I'm quite involved in a number of efforts in the community, standardization at the World Wide Web Consortium, and some other things, working on technical standards, and also building, as a company, we're building some open source projects and commercial products, all having to do somehow with decentralized identity.
Yes, hello, my name is Tim. I'm CEO and co-founder of the company called IAMX, what is a Web3 live business case company. Before this time, I co-founded Preis24.de, and sold this to ProSieben Sat.1. Before this time, I was in the private equity segment of Professor Beisheim in the Scout24 group, and we have sold this to T-Online, Deutsche Telekom. And before that time, I was working at the German Stock Exchange at the New Market on the side of the companies as a so-called investor relations manager, did 3 IPOs, and I'm a certified European financial analyst.
Okay, great. So I would say just let's just start with your presentation, and we can do it any way you like. We can interrupt you, and if there are questions in the Q&A, I can stop you, or we can also do the discussion at the end. I don't know if you prefer something.
You can, raise your question whenever you want to raise it. I'm very flexible there.
Okay, great. So I'll watch the Q&A and chat section, and yeah, participants, you can use chat and Q&A to communicate with us, and also we can give you the microphone if you want to say something, of course. So yeah, then let's start, and thanks again for joining tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. So the structure of the research that we have prepared is basically divided into 3 segments. Segment number 1 regarding Web3 is what have been the key differences between Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3, just that we get the big picture. Then when we have kind of found out what are the main differentiators are, then we continue to look what business models will be the next 5 things that are relevant to look at right now and why, and I've given some examples on this. Then regarding those business models we are discussing, I've prepared, I think, the 10 most important ones, including the metrics, and then we will look at how can this work, because the big question that needs to be answered is the question of mass market adoption. And then we look at the legal side in the end, and then we could have an open discussion, or maybe the questions in between. So then I start with the big picture regarding Web3, kind of big picture to understand where we are and where we are coming from. Okay, so below here, where you see W1, W2, W3, this is Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. And you see some brand names in the first line. You see, okay, this was the age of Yahoo, of Netscape, of the Internet Explorer. And it was, read only, and it was central, and it was company owned and company controlled. And it wasn't built with a layer for identity and authentication. Therefore, you had many conversion breaks. This is this area here. So for example, BTX had 60,000 users. This is the Commodore. This is the age of CompuServe, the age of the Pac-Man. This is when they were selling the first internet connection CDs that were in many newspapers included. You have Netscape. And then when you continue to the Web 2 world, you add to this read what was there before the write. So this is when you put content in YouTube, Facebook, everything that is social has to do with writing content. So this was still central, and this was still new now, customer owned regarding the content, but you still have it in a kind of company control mediated way. Also there, you have no layer that works for identity and authentication. Therefore, also there you have the conversion break. How do you feel this? You fill in forms like many, many days. How often have you put in your name? How often have you been proving your identity, post-ident, video-ident, or other know your customer processes? So this is Web 2, and you see all kinds of logos and companies from this area, including gaming and crypto, and when they have been founded in order to kind of understand the big picture. So what we see is that here, starting from already in this age here with Bitcoin, that we have many significant companies that have been founded that really already made a big change. So what does it mean regarding segmentation of Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3? So what we have here right now is that we add fulfillment. Fulfillment is the maximum outcome. This means that you treat the internet like you are logged in. I will get to this later, but this is the big picture that you need to take out for you, that you are completely logged in. So this is done by the so-called identity and authentication layer. And the main functions here is that it enables peer-to-peer connection. So you basically do not need middlemen anymore. If you have a working identity and authentication mechanism, you can enable those so-called asynchronous workflows. So you don't have to be there. Things can really be done in smart contract. You have legally binding actions. So this is important also for something like the metaverse. Also there, if you want to negotiate something, buy something, sign something, whatever, you need also there the proof of identity and also the capability to authenticate certain properties. So this is the big picture. So we have read, and write, and fulfillment. And the big story is that it goes from company-owned, company-controlled to customer-owned, customer-controlled. This means this is in the hands of us. This is the big picture of self-sovereign identity. And this means basically from a technological approach and also from a perspective what is possible is that you're really logged into the internet all the time. So this was kind of the big picture. Do we have questions so far?
No questions in the chat and Q&A, so I think you're good to go.
Okay, so the next 5 big things in Web3. Number 1 is called NFT anything. This means that we will see a strong trend that we already see right now. What you find here on number 1 is all the various forms of rights and values and assets that can be put into an NFT, and there will be more. For example, here I added something, I don't know whether you have heard it before, but it's possible also to put real estate as a collateral on the chain to back a stable coin or to take out a loan. So many things are really possible. And in order that this works, the big trend that we have identified, number 1 in Web3, is that the NFT needs an anchor in the real world in order to work. This means for NFTs regarding art or music that we need some form of standardization regarding the rights, whether you just buy the NFT and you really do not know whether you have value with it or not, or if you understand it from a more professional side. And this is also the side, how this is done in the real world. And therefore we expect, some kind of standardization regarding the rights and royalties that can be standardized very easily. Therefore, we expect that this topic will drive lots of value to NFTs in order to segment them in regards of the rights that they have. This also will make it possible, for example, let's say you're a music manager and you have a singer, and usually you would do the publication process with a certain label. You have here the option to say, okay, I take out the complete album with royalties, and somebody will be responsible for marketing on certain rules. So this is all possible, and this is a trend that we have identified there. NFT anchor means, for example, coming back to the example regarding the real estate, this could mean that if you use real estate as a collateral on the chain, that you really need an entry in the landmark, that this real estate is locked for a certain intermediary in order to proceed as was agreed on in the smart contract. So you need a legal world anchor in order to really prove the value. Handing over right now to the next one, what is very important, this is NFT identity. We have identified this as maybe the strongest pain, the strongest pull that we also receive from talking to various marketplaces. And the goals are there. Number one, verify the creator. This is important also for you if you want to purchase as a product. You need to prove the authenticity of the NFT. You are looking from a buyer side to solutions to protect the value, and it would be good if it would be visible in any wallet and on the marketplace, and if it could, reduce fraud to zero, would be great. So those are the painkillers there. And how is this solved? And this is a product that our company has developed, NFT Identity. So what we check in cooperation with the marketplace accounts is whether the person can log in successfully to the provided sources there. So you see various social media accounts, you see GitHub if they have, you see marketplace, for example, OpenSea or whatever, YouTube, website. We do a bank verification, email, mobile phone number, and a fully legally binding know your customer process check also if this is wished. So this is important so that you do not buy a fake. And I think we've shown it on the next page. This is just an internal draft, no share. But let's say that you're here on OpenSea, you see, okay, is this a real or a fake? And then you see, okay, Twitter is checked. How many followers does he have? Facebook is checked. So this, gives proof that you're buying something real there. But the implementation looks slightly different from marketplace to marketplace. Okay, so number 2 out of the 5 was NFT identity. We can get more deeper later if you like. Number 3 right now is biometric recovery. What does this mean? This means that the recovery process is not longer depending on seed phrases that you need to remember, because really it's scary. Sometimes you lose those papers and sometimes they're not there where they should be. And we replace this via the biometrics, because the biometrics is something where each, like, for example, your face or your fingerprint still or your fingerprint rolled, each of those attributes is a unique identifier. And what is possible there is to chain them. This means to put 3 unique identifiers into even a bigger one. So it has a little bit higher security. And this can be then used in order to replace the seed phrases. This is possible via a hardware terminal. I will show you this later to you. This is an infrastructure solution with a scanner and a biometric camera on a state level in order to serve as an interface from the real world to the chain world, to put plastic and papers really as a portable proof on the chain. So this is also used for the biometric recovery, biometric identity. I will be a little bit faster now. This means that right now in the complete world, out of the 7.9 billion people that live here, 1.4 have no national identity. So they have no national identity passport or something that they have in the document that proves who they are. And if you do not have this, most of the outcome is that without identity, without national identity, there is no ownership, no bank account, no mobile phone contract and stuff. So this really cuts you off from the complete world. 240 million children have no birth certificate. And 1 out of 2 women in low income countries, they have no ID at all. no national ID at all. So this solution is also something that is provided there, this hardware and software solution, in order to provide the very solid form of biometric identity. Because, for example, with many telcos in Ghana and Zambia, for example, the fingerprint is something that you need in order to do the phone contract with the telco partner. So this has really a big value. Number 4 is the layer identity and authentication. This is what I described before, the thing that you are logged in. This means also that you do not need to fill in forms again. And we calculated this, it takes about 400 days of your life to fill in forms. So it's a real pain. And the advantage that we have is that you can, fill in forms with one click and also have a reusable ident and know your customer process. So this layer, what is the big picture of this layer? It is that you do it in a marketplace approach. This means that you answer, number 1, the most important question is, how do you solve customer mass onboarding? And this is, for example, done by source number 1, telecommunication partner, and source number 2, this biometric identity terminal. Why? Because telecommunication partners almost all over the world make a profit per customer per year of about $6 per customer per year, $6. And let's say if you own a telco, independent of where you are in the world, and you say, okay, can I connect my pre-authenticated users with business models that they already use, but I do it in a more convenient way, and I get them, some discounts. And this solution leads to the monetization. So this is the motivation why the telecommunication partner is doing it. The holder is saving lots of money, and all the verifiers that are connected here, they have the big advantage that they can onboard every client in one-click fulfillment. So it's not filling in forms and post-ident and video ident anymore. And there are many, many different ledgers out there in the world. And the goal is that wherever you as a customer store your identity and your credentials, independent of which ledger you use, the goal is that all the various solutions and also decentralized apps can work with any chain. And for this, we have so-called DIDs. And this is where I would like to hand over to Marco Sabatello.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Yes, so I'm sorry I don't have slides, but I can give a quick introduction to DIDs, decentralized identifiers. That is a standard that's currently being developed at the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, a very important organization that creates standards for the web. And to explain DIDs, it's interesting to go back in time maybe a little bit. Some of us have been working on identity, digital identity for a very long time, and we always used to say that the internet was built without an identity layer, right? So the internet sort of has a notion of machine identity. There are IP addresses and domain names and things like that, but there isn't really an architecture or a layer for human identity. So when we go online, there's not really one way or one standardized way how we present ourselves and how we know how others know who we are and how we control who we want to be when we go online. And all of this has been built after the internet itself was designed, and architects and engineers came up with some systems for creating identity, like usernames and passwords. And some people came up with really bad systems, like login with Facebook or login with Google, these very centralized systems and architectures. And Tim mentioned a little bit already that a lot of people don't have a national identity, or a lot of people are unable to prove who they are. But on the other hand, there are also a lot of people who are over-identified, right? When we go online as a consequence of things like Facebook and Google, there's too much information about us. We are over-identified, and we know about things like surveillance capitalism and mass surveillance by the NSA, and we've heard that personal data is the new oil of the 21st century, and we've heard that if we go online and we're not the customer of Facebook and Google, but we're the products of Facebook and Google. So all of that means that digital identity is very centralized online. It's not under our control. And that has a lot of negative consequences also politically and socially. And so at some point we thought, in order to fix that, in order to build this missing identity layer for the internet, we need to start with identifiers. Identifiers are names or numbers, addresses when we go online, and for any kind of interaction in the digital world, but also in the physical world, really, we always need identifiers. We always need a way to refer to each other, to name each other. We need phone numbers, we need email addresses, we need postal addresses, right? And in the digital world also, for any kind of interaction, we need identifiers, we need names and numbers. Without that, we cannot have relationships, we cannot exchange data, we cannot send messages, and we cannot have any kind of higher level concepts such as trust or reputation. So all of that requires some notion of identifiers as a basis for identity. And traditionally, all the identifiers that we are using online are centralized, right? They're given to me. My Facebook username is given to me by Facebook. My email address is given to me by my provider. My domain name is also given to me by a central registry. A lot of people think you can buy a domain name, but you can't really buy a domain name, right? You can only rent a domain name, and it can be taken away from you. And so we thought we need to create a new type of identifier that doesn't have these problems. And so a few years ago, we came up with decentralized identifiers. That was first built by a smaller group of people, but since then, as I mentioned, has been matured into a technical specification at the World Wide Web Consortium. Now, for the first time, DIDs, or decentralized identifiers, can be created and used without a dependency on a central authority or intermediary. DIDs, I can create that myself. I don't need an internet provider. I don't need a Facebook or a state or a university to give that to me, but I can create a decentralized identifier on my own, and that really mirrors or really reflects how identity, I think, should work in the physical world, right? I as a human being, I have an identity, even if I don't have a passport, right? So I have an identity from birth. It's a human right. It's human nature that I have that. And so sometimes we quote the French philosopher René Descartes, who said he didn't say I register on Facebook and therefore I am, but he said I think and therefore I am, right? So that means my identity, who I am as a human being, that's something that's inherent to me, and it comes only from me, and it is not given to me by someone. And we think that DIDs, decentralized identifiers, are the technical realization of this human concept of identity. And that's now the basis for a lot of other technical developments that are happening. Things like verifiable credentials, attestations, digital wallets where I can store my, I don't know, my national ID, my driver's license, my club membership, and a lot of other things. So there's a growing community and a growing set of pilot projects all over the world, building interesting use cases and applications with this new technology. But at the heart, or at the core of this development, is the DID, the Decentralized Identifier. And maybe one more comment, and then I'll pause. The one important aspect of these decentralized identifiers is also that they are not dependent on any single technology. There are different types of DIDs, different types of decentralized identifiers. They can use blockchains, and a lot of them use blockchains. That's one way how you can create identifiers that are decentralized. But there are also several other technologies, and by now there are, I think, over 100 different types of DIDs that are implemented using different underlying technologies. But the concept is always the same. It's an identifier that belongs to me, that enables relationships and data sharing, but does not depend on a central authority. And maybe I will pause now, see if there are any comments, maybe.
Thanks a lot. I think it's really, really important that you mentioned that it's not has to be connected to blockchains, because I see in the discussions a lot of people mix this up, and then it's like, why do we need a blockchain? But it's not about a blockchain here. It's about a digital identity that is decentral. So this can, I think it's really important to highlight this. Doesn't have to be on a blockchain, and oftentimes it might not make sense to have it on a blockchain. And I think we have to acknowledge that.
Yes, and this is one of the key components of the company, the New Tech, where Marcos Zappello was also speaking from as a CEO. And this is the goal also, like in our business model, to be highly interoperable. This means that you must have the goal to connect to all the forms of DID methods or decentral storage solutions that the customer decides. So this is very important, and this is one of the key competences of the New Tech. And we've just added this number. Right now, today, there are 14.4 billion domain name resolutions per day. We cannot predict right now how many will there be for DIDs, but it is at least the amount of e-commerce transactions. So it's a gigantic value. What we also see regarding the trends is a so-called peer-to-peer economy. We have seen startups in this sector that have built the greatest tools that I have really ever seen regarding to really simply build a decentralized app via a form of standardization and customizing that is, just right, in order to make it possible that the first mover kind of enter the segment. And it's also possible there to add the various processes and to connect with the real world. So this was incredibly cool for us to see this in our research. Then that all the things that are being built right now, they are DID-based, they're connected to the real world, they have the goals that the chains can talk via each one another. And we have certain connections also already to e-commerce standard shops, for example, like Shopware, in order, to make it like a plug-in solution. Really fascinating also if you understand and let's say, okay, and ask the question, but is it only that, things are faster? Is it only that things are cheaper? And is it only that it's more convenience? Yes, to all of this. But we've also seen very, very cool things regarding new business models that are possible with Web3 and that have not been possible with Web2 or with Web1. Do you remember letsbuy.com? This was a really crazy startup, and they had little ants in the logo. And the goal was to do some kind of pooling of purchasing volumes of customers. And transferring this to Web3 means that you can get the certain amount of legally binding pending contracts that you need. So let's say you build a contract with a gas supplier, with an electricity supplier, with a partner from continuing obligations, such as telecommunication, utilities, I just mentioned, certain insurance products or certain banking products. So usually what you see in the market is the more new customers you can bring to a company, the better the deal is. So in this decentralized peer-to-peer model, the good thing is that this benefit of being able to also do a customer mass onboarding for the other verifiers is that the discount given to them is very high. And this also works, by example, for real estate. Because if you collect, like you build a skyscraper, you have 32 apartments, usually you have to prepay, you have to pre-finance, and then you get a certain amount when you start building. But when you put everything into a pending contract and say, okay, I have 32 pre-checked credit loan amounts concerning this real estate, and they shall only be so-called executed under certain conditions. Also, this would be possible then. Just that we see at this example that it's possible to do things that have not been possible before in the biggest asset market in the world, private real estate. Okay. Do we have questions so far?
No questions. If you have any, please just use the chat or a more formal question you can ask in the Q&A.
Okay, this is an overview of the business models. So what we introduced before is the segment NFT Identity. So the goal is to get a lifetime revenue in order of a royalty split, a participation of 0.1%. We have here so-called form. This means whether the customer has the benefit of a completed automatically form filling process, but this is not included in NFT Identity because it's just not there. But the full identity is included, and it's concerning all NFT, and the volume is growing. And the biggest pain that we are solving here, this is one of our first products, is we are proving identity, proving the ownership, proving the creator. This number 2 is the identity layer. This means that you connect, like in a marketplace, buyers and sellers, in other words, holders and verifiers, in order to, to connect peer-to-peer. And we have built this in a form that both peers can very simply interact, and therefore we participate in our Web3 business model in the resulting affiliate commissions, and they're about $30 one time plus a certain percentage lifetime. So it's quite a profitable segment. What are the painkillers there? You save time and money as a customer. Of course, you love this. You do reusable form filling and reusable know your customer in one click. So this, also saves you time, and you can really feel it. The good thing for the agent, this is in my case, the telco, has a new revenue stream because of the monetization of the customer base, because they can do the one-click fulfillment with shops that they already use today. The verifier, for example, online pharmacy or whatever, they get new customers, they increase the conversion rate. next element is the holder, and the holder has a piece of software that is very important. It's like maybe the importance of a browser even, but is the identity wallet. This is how the holder, the customer, the buyer adds the layer of identity and authentication to the internet, like you are logged in. So this is free, it does form filling, it does ident, and it's on the principles of self-sovereign identity. That means you are the owner, the holder, the controller. We have certain benefits on doing the onboarding process based on those so-called verifiable credentials. DAO is just the example that basically any kind of entity can do a certain certain check whether when the customer says yes. So also that's possible that the benefit in this area is big. Why do I mention this? It's at this topic metaverse. It's not only a fashion word. This is what I said in the beginning, independent of design and architecture and whether you can buy land there or not. The goal is, always to enable legally binding actions. And the best thing would be in one click or one fingerprint or whatever. So therefore you see it's also needed there. Otherwise it's only little people running around there. What kind of other business models do we see that are possible via Web3 in a complete disruptive way? This is the voucher business. This is everything from Netflix, iTunes, Google Store, whatever. And in this segment, you get a revenue stream of about 5% of the brokered voucher volume. The market is huge. It also includes payment, like the PaySafe card. It's a billion volume that they transact here. Then we have the e-commerce sector. We have a revenue there of about 10% if you replace the current affiliate logic with the customer advance, that everything is possible in one click. We have travel. The good thing about travel is when you have stored your biometrics in your wallet, this means that you can also interact with things with your biometrics. Let's say you book a rental car via Sixt, and let's say you get an Hyundai GV30, just the example because this model has a fingerprint sensor installed. And if you have done the booking with this credential set, also including biometrics, you can, open the car, for example, with a fingerprint, or access the hotel with your iris or your face or your fingerprint, or delegate also rights to certain persons. What I like about it is that you can connect biometrics with things. I think it's just wonderful what kind of business models you can build there. The biggest and most massive replacement is in the area of continuous obligations, Dauerschuldverhältnisse, so memberships, utility, telecommunication, insurance, banking. This is the part of the e-commerce world where the highest sales volume, where the biggest commissions are in, and the pain there of filling in forms and doing with your customers is the biggest. So this is massive. What you solve to people there. So this is a really cool area. Yes, the last one is the token economy, but I've mentioned it before. Those are solutions like our call. What you see is what you get, decentralized app, also including processes. Okay. Questions so far? Time check. We're already here for 45 minutes.
Yeah, normally we do it until 8. So I don't know how many slides you have, but I think it's really interesting. So please go.
Okay. So let's maybe focus back on the first slide, just that we get concentrated on the first slide back again, where we have seen what have been, the key differentiators between Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. And what our most important finding of the research on Web3 was that there are many, many brilliant companies out there, and there's almost already like a B2B marketplace for Web3 technology solutions out there. So you're finding really software that is really designed in a very nice way, but they have all one thing in common, and this is that they have no business cases. So making Web3 possible also means that you need to answer the question of customer mass onboarding. And the way that we think that this is done, and this is also our business model, if you want to read a very fascinating book about this topic, it's called Crossing the Chasm. Crossing the Chasm, it describes a marketing and sales philosophy of what golden rules you need to stick to if you have a high technology product with the capability to be disruptive. What do you need to do in order to become a standard by de facto usage? So this is the key of the book. And therefore, the business model that we see the strongest works as follow. So number one, you see this shopping cart. This means you have to answer, how do you solve customer mass onboarding? So how do you solve this? Number one, telecommunication partners. Why? They are in each country. They have at least 10 million customers each. They have $6 per customer per year profit. They all want more profit. AT&T, for example, has $38 minus per customer per year. Let's say each one of them would do a car insurance. They would have a positive result again. So this is customer mass onboarding, is telcos, and also those so-called identity terminals. I will show you one time that you see how they look. It's in the end. I'm sorry, I have to jump there. What you see here, it's a little bit small. It is 3 meters high. It weighs 250 kilos. It has a 65-inch screen here, a 27-inch Ilyama down there. It has a scanner, a payment, and a biometric camera. What does it do? It does the functions that we have described before regarding identity, scan, recovery, and payment. And this is also a source of customer onboarding. I mentioned this because with the 500 biggest cities in the world, you reach 1.6 billion people. With 500 cities, 1.6 billion. So this is like a fair hardware investment in order to have such a massive reach. Therefore, I consider this next to the telco as still a valid source of customer mass onboarding, especially in countries where you have a high amount of people without a national ID. So those are the two sources here. Number two, what is needed in order to make Web3 work is, in order that you can be logged in on the internet all the time, you need also to do this in a legal conform way. And this has been the question that has not been answered for the past maybe 10 years, or I've never seen an answer before. This means, how are you able to prove something between two peers, because each peer needs to rely on something, but you have to do it in a way that you are fully legally conform, especially with data protection. And why should this be a problem? Because what we have seen before is that if you use the key phrases, if you use the passwords, and you have stored something on something either in a DIT or on a ledger, you have no possibility to re-access this data if you use the passwords. And therefore, whatever business model tries to enable sources like telecommunication partners, banking partners to onboard their customers needs to tell them, how do you solve GDPR? And so just that you take this key message with you, this only works if you solve GDPR. Otherwise, it's not legal conform. This is the hurdle there that you need to take. Otherwise, there is no Web3. So this has been something important. We have solved this, and we have filed an intellectual property for this. C is the buyer. This means when you have the customer that's coming from the telco, you do the conversion process here, and then you have a storage in the identity wallet of the customer. So for example, you get a letter. The letter has a QR code. You scan the QR code, you download the app, you get a short message, you type in the 4-digit code, you have the credentials in your wallet. And the wallet means this is what you have as a buyer. This is your app in iOS, or in a plugin, for example. We have already prepared a Google plugin that works, but the big picture is that it's customer owned, and you own this. And via this, you are connected to various business models. So it's really like if you're asking who are the sellers, then it's a form of research. Google, for example, what are the top 100 affiliates in the world with the highest revenues in Europe, in North America, or whatever. So those are the partners, because they are having the products that are already being bought, but it's via complicated processes. Here it's possible via one click. And how can we make money on this? So based on this disruptive process, we have about one-time sales commission of $30 per transaction as an average. We have a lifetime of about $55, but it's either this or that, not this and that either. And that's also a lifetime commission regarding the token. And the reason why they're doing this, and this is how the circle closes, is because we are, or the technology makes it possible to share profits. Okay.
Comment or question regarding the onboarding and more specifically the biometric scanners. I don't get how these giant biometric scanners can be implemented in countries where people don't even have passports.
Why?
Not sure. Maybe because of the resources in the country, or people, when there are people standing in front of them.
What we see actually, for example, is what we see is the complete opposite. What we see is very open arms, especially from countries in Africa, in order to provide a solution, to provide another form of an identity that is accepted in commercial business. And with the states that we have talked to right now via intermediaries, it is something that is highly supported there. The technology that is built in there, I mean, the hardware and the software is from a state level. So it's, for example, also used in Germany for border crossing. It is a hardware that authenticates whether a passport is real or fake, and it can decompose the attributes into certain verifiable credential container sets. And it only issues those credentials if Martin, for example, who has put his national ID on the terminal, is the same that is seen through the camera of the biometric camera. If Martin or Tim or Marcus have no national ID, then you use the biometrics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. I know it also from other development cooperation projects that they use biometrics, and people are really happy that they can in fact have an identity.
It is something also just that we all have this understanding that is stored nowhere. So it is not stored in the hardware infrastructure that we have seen. It is not stored there. It is also not stored in a decentral or not in a central database. What we do, or what is done with this biometrics, is that is transferred. It is calculated into a certain vector model. This is then hashed, afterwards encrypted, and only this abstract proof is stored in the identity wallet of the holder. So it's not even in the DID that would be on the chain. So it's very, very secure. It's just an abstract proof.
How do you see the topic of usability? I mean, it requires for the people that they really take care of their identity and not lose their wallet or lose access to their wallet.
Why?
That's a typical, because then they lose their identity, or what do they do then?
But how can you lose it?
I don't know, you lose your phone?
Yes, but the good thing is that this infrastructure is the gateway to connect the real world, Martin, where we are in, with the chain world. So when you lose your phone and it was open and it was not secured, for example, and I could, for example, take over all the nice credentials that you have in there, Martin, the infrastructure is so important because the most solid form of an identity is the biometric. So with this, you can overrule like super admin rights and get everything. So therefore, the biometric door must always be open. And from those, I think, 185 countries in the world where the scanner can check whether it's fake or not, I think 169, a really, really high number, have the EID function. So you can have a machinable, readable zone for the biometrics in order to read them out and to compare them. So it is something that is very, very valid.
Okay, so the biometric is kind of the master key for, yeah, or backup key.
Yes, this makes it, safe. And also this, I don't know how many people have had the situation that sometimes when the code is so important, you put it on paper, but you're so good in your digital life that sometimes it's hard to get the paper. Absolutely. And this can happen. And also there you have the biometrics in order to reconnect with any wallet. So it's not only one eye for this wallet. So if you have various wallets that you want to connect, it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think I wouldn't go on the legal side unless somebody wants this. Regarding GDPR, AML. AML is really important. Many, many people claim AML is possible. Usually it's never. And how do you how's your conformity regarding laws and what kind of governance system is implemented? Is anybody here that is interested in order to get a summary or to get a deeper dive on any of those topics?
I mean, probably people are. I think it's really, GDPR is such a huge topic when it comes to digital identity. But maybe for another session, I don't know. It sounds like there's a lot to talk about.
Okay.
I don't know how fast you think you can give an overview. Otherwise,
I can do it fast. GDPR, the only way to solve it is to get a data that is considered as completely anonymous. This means the GDPR does not apply. This is the only way to solve it. Anti-money laundering law, like GWG, Geldwäschegesetz, defines in the law what kind of attributes the bank needs to check before they open a bank account with you, get out a loan, take your money from the investment side. I think regarding a private person, there are about 11 or 9 mentioned in the GWG. And what you need to do there is decide whether you have parties that have pre-authenticated customers in a state-regulated market where they're checking identity on a certain level. When we apply this to telco, for example, there's a difference between postpaid customers and prepaid. And the prepaid customers have, since 2017, the hard check on the anti-terror law. So there it's a really hard form of identity. But still, whether you have credentials that work with any banking product really relies on country per country. For example, in Germany, the BaFin basically has a catalog list of what is accepted and what is not accepted, same as telcos. So you can't, just come up with a new form and say, hey, this is the new. It also usually it needs a sign off. So you always have to differentiate which kind of continuous obligations are you looking at. Is it only an ident process? Is it a real know your customer process? Do you have to check more extended, like what is the source of the money? Are also companies included? What is a very difficult topic. So this is anti-money laundering, so that you do everything that you know your customer and protect money laundering. Laws is just a big topic, but the important thing is that because everything is executed by all stakeholders, this means holder, verifier, the authentication agent, the state, under a smart contract. And this means also that the laws in every country need to be considered. For example, because you can separate the proof of identity and the authentication process. You can still have this decentral. Yes, you can have this on a ledger, but you can still separate this from the form of payment, because in many countries that we did research, cryptocurrencies are forbidden for payment, but it is legal to prove identity with them. So it could be that you have a state currency that you pay with and you do the integration via Salamantex or some other partner, but you still do the proof of identity in this form. So this is laws, and it's important that it's different from country to country. Governance is the topic that a real decentral system needs also a framework under which the holders and verifiers that use the system can rely on. So it's something that has a governance. The good thing here is that in all the other formats, the form of voting, for example, on Ethereum, on Cardano's, or on other, they are always based on the economic value, how much cryptocurrency you have, because you cannot, dedicate it to a person, because the person could run so many virtual machines and change the favor of the result towards him. But if you're able to prove identity, like I asked in the beginning, Web3 makes letsbuy.com, for example, in my eyes, perfectly working. And it also does something here, because when it's possible to prove identity always in real time, also like a direct democracy voting process, this is a very nice form of governance is possible. This means that you do not have a group of people that decides, but you decide on everything based on you as an identity holder, and not based on your economic value. I think this is also a benefit that is coming from there. Okay, I think we already used 1 hour of your valuable time.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I think it was great that you also went quickly through the topics at the end, because they're really interesting. Yes, there's so much to take in here, I think, and yeah. Hopefully you can solve this identity puzzle, because I think it's the devil lies in the details. But it's sounds like you've thought about all the different problems that can happen, and yeah, I will follow it, and I think it's if this can be solved, a lot of other applications will be possible. This is kind of the thing that is always missing, the real decentralized identity that is not there yet. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have more talks on digital identity on our Blockchain Monday, and hopefully we can talk again another time. Are there any other questions from the audience? I don't think so. Yeah, well then I can only say thank you, Tim. Thank you, Marcus. It's really interesting. And yeah, if you agree, we will publish this on YouTube as well, and people can also pause and try to take in the information in between, because for someone who's not really into the topic, it's really a lot to digest, I think. Next week we'll talk about DAOs. So Tim also mentioned it briefly in his presentation. So next week will be about DAOs. I think it will be in German. So I hope to see all of you next week again, and have a great week, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.